emphasize that the governor's plan is straightforward and contains two elements. The first element is a $100 million bond proposal to accomplish a trust land transfer. And the second element is a multi-species habitat conservation plan. These two elements are interdependent. They rely on each other. They work together. And they are a form of balancing payment to the Common School Fund to generate both income currently and income in the future. Essentially, in honoring the obligation of the Common School Fund, this plan seeks to make a $100 million transfer into the fund, a cash transfer. It will enable the current generation of Oregon school children to benefit from that investment. It also triggers the ability to have a habitat conservation plan on the remainder of the forest. The remainder of the forest can be a working forest, generating income for the next generation of Oregon school children. And lastly, enables the forest to stay in the ownership of a public entity. And by enabling a public entity to retain ownership, enables those generations of future Oregonians that we can't yet imagine to benefit from the increasing value of the Elliott as it grows in value, as we know it will, so that the state continues to benefit. To speak more directly to the funding proposal, the funding would execute a partial trust land transfer on the forest, removing a portion of the forest from its obligation to produce revenue for the Common School Fund. The portion removed from the portion of the forest removed from the Common School Fund will focus on the stands that include older trees, riparian areas, and steep slopes. It will be a fixed geography, not one that floats to different areas of the landscape over time. The purpose of this investment, again, is to honor the trust-like responsibilities of the Common School Fund, but also to decouple those portions of the forest that have the highest habitat value for ESA-listed species, and under the current regulatory structure have been the most complicated or difficult to manage in a way that produces revenue for the fund. By decoupling the portion of the forest that cannot be actively harvested under the current regulatory structure, this plan enables the remainder of the forest to be managed under an HCP. Before I hand the microphone to Liz to describe the framework of the HCP, I also want to acknowledge that the public ownership option does not foreclose a role for Oregon's sovereign tribal governments. All of the elements of this framework can work with other public entities owning, operating, collaborating, or cooperating on a portion or the entirety of the Elliott landscape. And we remain interested in the continuing conversation about returning land to tribal ownership, both here and elsewhere in Oregon.